Hey guys, it's Valentine's Day, so I thought it'd be fun to make a list of the top 5 gods I love playing in Smite 2. So here's how it's gonna go. I'm gonna show you the god and go over the roles I like playing them in. Then I'll go into practice mode and give you a fun build. This isn't my list of the best gods, but I've been having a lot of fun with them, and I think if you give them a try, you might think so too. Okay, let's not waste any more time. My list starts with... Number 5, Odin. I've been playing him in the jungle because he has good movement and he counters gods that don't have a leap. Let me show you a build that gives him infinite mana and a lot of cooldown. I always start with Boomba's Cudgel because it gives me a lot of cooldown and helps me clear jungle monsters quickly. Then I'm going to get Transcendence and Book of Thoth. With these items, the more mana you have, the more damage you do, and you get a lot of mana. The intelligence on Book of Thoth also helps Odin specifically because he has hybrid scaling on his 2 and his 3. Next I'm going to get Tekokage. It gives me more strength, more cooldown, and when I use an ability it gives me movement speed even if I don't use that ability on an enemy god. So for example, if I'm moving through the jungle and I pop my 2, you can see that Tekokage activates above my health bar. I'll then get Jotun's Revenge for a lot more strength and a lot more cooldown. You have a lot more flexibility with your last 2 items, but if they have a lot of healing, you can get something like Brawler's Ruin, or if you want more movement speed, you can get something like Gem of Focus. But I'm going to get Heartseeker. The extra mana is going to let my Transcendence and Book of Thoth do more damage, and the passive allows me to kill tankier gods with a lot of health. I'm going to finish with a Shifter Shield because it allows me to be tanky when I need to be tanky, and do damage when I need to do damage. And again, with Transcendence and Book of Thoth, more mana, more damage. As far as Relic, you have 2 options. I like to go Blink because you can catch people off guard with a Blink ult. It also just gives you a lot more movement. Or if the enemy has a lot of CC, I like to go Beads because Odin doesn't have any CC in his kit. So now that we're at full build, I want to show you how quickly I can cycle through my abilities because of all the cooldown. Let's take a look. Number 4, Baron Samedi. He's awesome as a solo, support, or mid, but today I'm going to show you a tankier solo build that still allows you to do so much damage. Actually, let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's a ranked conquest game we played in the past, and if you look at my stats here, you're going to see I have top damage taken, mitigated, self-healing, and ally healing, which, you know, that's cool, but it was also expected from a support, which is what I was playing in this game. But then you take a look at player damage, and it's just like, what? Okay, so I've been having a lot of fun with Baron when I build a lot of cooldown and I build a lot of active items. If I go support, I like to start Selflessness, but I'll do kind of a solo build right now and start Sands of Time for the cooldown. Without a doubt, one of the best items Baron can build is Lifebinder. It gives him so much sustain, especially in the early game. Next we're going to get Breastplate of Valor for the protections, the cooldown rate, and the mana. And then for magical protection, I like to go Screech and Gargoyle for the cooldown and the active. The next few items you have a lot more flexibility, but let's say you need some anti-heal and more protection, you can go something like Ruinous Ankh. And if you'd like more damage and more healing, go something like Soul Gem. I like to round out my build with Rout of Asclepius. It gives me more intelligence, more healing, and the active really helps in the late game. As far as Relic, I like to avoid Beads and Aegis on Baron. Blink's nice since he doesn't have a leap or a dash. Phantom Shell's nice if they have an Odin, Yamoja, or Ymir. And Sunder's nice for some extra damage and objective secure. I waited until the end to talk about this, but you'll see next to my health bar I have 3 active items. The first slot is Lifebinder, the second is Screech and Gargoyle, and the third is my Rout of Asclepius. Lifebinder allows me to mark enemies like this, and then once I do damage to them, I gain a shield and health in return. This is a 15-second cooldown, and kills and assists make it come back up even quicker, so you can be spamming this as much as you want. Screech and Gargoyle opens up a cone like this, and if I hit any god inside, they become silenced, meaning they can't use abilities. That also means if they're mid-ability, it'll cancel them out of it. He's not using an ability, but let me show you how it looks. And then Rout of Asclepius is very nice as a countermeasure if the other team's building anti-heal for you. So for example, your 2 does healing, but if he had, let's say, Ruinous Ankh like I do, I would be doing less healing to myself and teammates. However, if I pop Rout of Asclepius like that, and then hit my 2, it'll do just as much healing for me and my teammates as if he didn't have any anti-heal. Another kind of important thing if you don't play Baron very often, this is the combo you want to hit with him. 3, then when he stops, 2, 1. If you can hit your 3 consistently, you will have top damage and healing in your games for even up to 25 minutes in the game with a full tank build. And with all the cooldown, you can pretty much pop it risk-free as soon as it's up. Number 3, Pele. Pele was my Smite 1 main, and I'm having just as much fun playing her in this game as I was in the last. I think she's viable in jungle or solo. She has excellent movement, excellent damage, and overall is just a fun god to play. This is going to be a full power build, so that means it's going to do a lot of damage, but late game you're going to have to be a little careful. The goal of this build is to make enemy gods disappear before they even know it hit them. To start out, we're going to go Boomba's Cudgel for the cooldown and the extra damage. I'm going to start with Jotun's Revenge because it's going to give me a lot of early game pressure with the strength and cooldown. Then I'm going to go right into Transcendence because it's going to give me a lot of power, a lot of mana, and once it's stacked, some penetration. If they have a lot of healing, now's the point where I would get a Brawler's Ruin. It gives you a lot of strength and penetration. Next I like to get Bloodforge because it gives me strength and attack speed, and Lifesteal is very important on a character like Pele. If you didn't know, her passive is when you drop below 50% health, you gain increased strength and lifesteal. So having an item like Bloodforge just gives her more survivability. And let me show you how it works. So when you pop it, notice the shield that comes up. Next I get Crusher because it's going to give me more strength, pen, and cooldown rate. Also the passive is nice to add even more damage. Lastly, I'd like to get Heartseeker. It helps you shred tankier gods a lot more easily. I really like to get Blink on Pele for the extra movement. Also, you can surprise people by Blink 2ing them. But I also understand that sometimes you're going to need Aegis and you're going to need beads depending on the matchups. Okay, so a full power build. Let me show you how much damage she does. And he's already dead. Number 2, the Morrigan. Turning into enemy gods is fun, but her aspect might be even more insane. I've been playing her in the jungle and the mid. But to be honest, the build doesn't change much. Okay, so this is base Morrigan without the aspect enabled. And you'll see when I use the 3, a clone goes ahead and I'm invisible. Now this looks good, but if you get hit, then you become visible again, and it's really difficult to get out of that situation. So if I toggle the aspect on and send my 3 out, the clone goes ahead, I'm no longer invisible, but I can teleport to that clone. That means if I'm in the mid lane, for example, I can put my clone over here, go clear wave, and then teleport all the way over here to my clone. I would pretty much always use the Morrigan aspect now, because it's a lot safer and a lot more fun. For this mid build, I'll start with Conduit Gem over Sands of Time because I want more damage. Then I'll go right into a Book of Thoth for the mana. I'll be building cooldown later, so I want to make sure I have the mana to spam abilities. Speaking of cooldown, I'm going to go into Chronos Pendant. It gives me so much cooldown, and it just got buffed so it gives me more intelligence. Next I'm going to get Gem of Focus. It gives me more intelligence, more cooldown rate, and the passive stacks with my 3's movement speed. Then I'm going to go into a Soul Gem. I get more intelligence and cooldown, and the 15% lifesteal allows me to survive longer in fights. At this point I'm going to get Obsidian Shard. You gain 60 intelligence, but the passive states that you gain the Shattering effect, granting you 20% penetration. And on top of this we'll finish out with Soul Reaver to make even the tankiest gods feel squishy. When it comes to a relic, Blink is always fun, but I actually think Purification Beads is better on the Morrigan. You can't teleport to your clone if you're CC'd, so you can always 3, Beads, and then teleport. This build is so good. It makes me wish I could build for my enemies. And number 1, Mordred. I unironically think Mordred is one of the best gods in the game right now. So good in the jungle, he's so good in the solo. Mordred just has the ability to take over games. He does a lot of damage, has a lot of lifesteal, always has his ult up, can chase down pretty much any kill, and is very disruptive to the enemy team. I've been playing him in the solo and in the jungle, but I think he's vastly better in the solo lane. This god was already one of my favorites, but this new aspect of Rage just tips it over the edge. Let's go into practice and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is Mordred. Like every other god, you'll see he has a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. But if you look to the left of my level, you'll notice he has an extra ability. This is his dash, and if I use it on the Ymir, you'll see that it knocks him up. A knock-up is obviously good CC, and prevents him from using things like abilities, relics, or actives, but if I turn off reduced cooldowns and use my knock-up, you'll see that there's a 10-second cooldown on it. Now let's toggle his aspect. It's no longer going to knock up, but it'll reset the cooldown after I use any other ability. So for example, I can dash into the Ymir, use my 1, dash again, use my 2, dash again, use my 3, and dash again. It also stacks with my ult, so I can even do another dash if I need to. Alright, now that you understand the aspect, let me get into the build. In the solo lane, I always like to start with Bluestone. Its passive is that when you hit abilities, it'll do damage over time for the next 2 seconds. I start off with Shield of the Phoenix. 30 physical protection, 250 max health, and 10 cooldown rate is nice, but the passive is that anytime you hit an enemy god with an ability, you gain health and mana back. Next I go into Gladiator Shield. It'll give me more physical protection, health, and cooldown rate, and the passive is that enemies hit by your abilities take 15 plus 25% of your item protections as bonus physical damage. At this point I'd like to go over what I've built so far. Bluestone Pendant, Shield of the Phoenix, Gladiator Shield. All of these passives activate when you hit abilities. And again, it's important to keep in mind that Mordred's Dash counts as an ability. That means I have an extra ability worth of physical damage over time, health and mana gain, and item protections as bonus physical damage. Next I'm going to go into Sphere of Negation. It'll give me 70 intelligence and 100 magical protection. Intelligence is important to Mordred because his 2 scales with intelligence, and the healing he gets from his ult also scales with int. Usually you have to pick between power and protections, not with Sphere of Negation. Next I get Soul Gem. It's going to give me more intelligence, lifesteal, and cooldown rate. Getting Sphere of Negation last item also helps Soul Gem's passive hit even harder. At this point, like most builds, you're going to have options. If you see that they have a lot of healing on their team, now's the time to get a Ruinous Ankh. But I'm going to go with Glorious Pridwen. It just got buffed in this patch, so now it does 35 physical and magical protection instead of 25. The cooldown rate also feels amazing, but the reason I'm getting this is for the active. When you pop Pridwen, you'll create an explosion dealing 55% of your protections as magical damage and slowing targets by 25% for 3 seconds in a 4.8 meter radius. Then you gain a shield equal to 100% of your protections for 5 seconds. This used to be 80%, but again it got buffed in this last patch. In this last item slot, you can truly get whatever you want. If you need beads, you get Talisman of Purification. If you want more speed, you get Stampede. You could do Pharaoh's Curse if they have a lot of auto attackers. Let's say they have a lot of critical strike, you can do something like Spectral. Spirit Robe just got buffed, so it's very strong. They also added Mantle of Discord, which feels just as strong. I'm not saying this is the best way to finish out the build, but I think it's a lot of fun. Gem of Isolation's passive are that when enemy gods are hit by your abilities, they're affected by a 15% slow for 2 seconds. The point of this item is to just make sure that nobody can ever get away from you. He has infinite dashes, his 3 already slows, Pridwen will slow, and now all of your other abilities will slow as well. This is definitely the build if you want to make someone rage quit. For a relic, I always get Sunder. I want to help my team lock down objectives later in the game, and you can also Sunder in the middle of your ult. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to activate my ult and then Sunder him before I hit him. So I can pop Sunder here. And then all that damage, he's sundered for. Mordred's strong and fun to use, but a good build puts him in discussion for best god in the game. Alright, that's all I got for you today. Please let me know what you thought about my list in the comments, and until next time, happy Valentine's Day.